so much trauma. You know, in the 4 books of the inheritance cycle, I didn't feel like I hated Galbatorix that much. He was the big bad guy off in the distance. Nothing he did was that personal. And then I read this. This is going to be a in-depth character video on Murtagh and Thorn, so spoilers for Murtagh. You will need to have read this before watching this video. Let's get sad. From the first 4 books, we know that Murtagh and Thorn have suffered. We know that they have been twisted and tortured and controlled. We know that they have been made to serve the person they hate, and they've made to kill people that they would not otherwise have. They have also been made to fight brother and nestmate. But in this book, we see way more. In the first 4, we never got to see from Murtagh's or Thorn's perspectives, and in this one, we really get to see what it is they're going through, what they have been through. We get a little of the backstory from Murtagh's life through some dreams and some memories, both of Murtagh's life before the book Aragon, and what they went through and what they suffered by Galbatorix's hand. And we also see the aftermath of everything. The aftermath being some severe PTSD for both characters, especially Thorn. And on Thorn's part, the separation anxiety, the panic disorder. We see their regret for what they had to do. And we see their broken relationship. Everything that Aragon and Saphira got, Murtagh and Thorn didn't. One of the big things that stood out to me about Murtagh and Thorn's relationship with each other was how from the moment of Thorn's hatching, they were never able to fully open their minds to each other. They have to each put up their own mental shields, meaning they don't get that close connection from the very beginning. And it's a barrier they have to overcome now. They don't have that just easy communication through their minds. It takes work. They have to remember to let their minds open to each other. It's not a natural thing for them, which is only one of the tragedies of how their relationship started, but it's one that they have to continue to keep dealing with as they go forward. This book really made me mad. I am way more mad at Galbatorix than I ever was. I got really mad at Bashel, and I got really mad at Paolini himself. More for the second part of the book, and I'll get there. So the story starts about a year after the end of Inheritance. Murtagh and Thorn have taken that year to just kind of be their own creatures. I won't say they're enjoying their time, but they are at least taking time to not be controlled by anyone. Neither of them has ever been free in their entire life. Thorn's life up to now has been much shorter. I think he's less than 2 years old at this point. And Murtagh being a young 20-something, I think, he's never had any freedom. He has always been under the thumb of Galbatorix. And so they need that year of just being away, doing what they feel like they need to do. I like that Murtagh still wants to honor being a writer. Writers traditionally kept the peace, the safety of the land. And so in his own way, kind of from the background, he's following those clues, trying to find out about the bird skulls and Bashel and what is all this. The reason they feel like they have to stay apart, it's pretty obvious. But if Murtagh had just been Morzan's son, it would have been like how we saw at the end of the first Aragon book, how he's viewed with suspicion because of who his father was, but maybe given a chance to prove himself. It's too late for that now. Now he fought and killed in Galbatorix's name. He has committed his own sins. That's a lot harder to come back from than just who your birth parents are. In fact, let's enjoy a little what-if scenario, just for fun. What if, at the end of the battle in Trondheim, Murtagh had not been taken by the twins back to Urubane? What if he had been able to stay with the Varden and fought on that side? He could have helped fight the Empire by giving Naswada inside information about people he's known all his life. What if Murtagh had been able to fight with the Varden clear up until Galbatorix's defeat? And I know Murtagh had an instrumental part in helping defeat Galbatorix, but let's say that Aragon and Saphira and all the elves and Elva could beat Galbatorix without Murtagh. And so imagine the Empire has been taken down and then Thorn hatches for Murtagh. What if they got to have what Arya and Fiernan got? A journey to Ellesmere, being trained among the peaceful forests with the elves. He could get a real education. He could be free to just bond and connect with his dragon. He could actually learn the real ancient language, learn how to be a magician and a magic user, and not have all the pain because Thorn hatched for him while Galbatorix was still in control. I wish for that even more for Thorn than for Murtagh. Murtagh had already suffered a lot. Not that I want Murtagh to suffer more, but Thorn hatched for his human. He saw the person that he wanted to hatch for and hatched, and it was not a good time. I wish he could have had what Saphira and Fiernan had. Fiernan gets it easier than Saphira, because Fiernan's not on the run like Saphira and Aragon were, but Thorn definitely has it way worse. Okay, something that I did not like, and it kept becoming a trend, and I was not happy about this, how often Murtagh was leaving Thorn. Murtagh kept going into cities. I understand that Thorn can't just go into a city with Murtagh, but couldn't the plot have been written in such a way that he doesn't have to keep going into cities over and over again? He just kept going in and saying, "Bye, Thorn, I'll call you if I need ya." It made it feel like Thorn was an inconvenience, whereas he should have felt like an inseparable partnership with Murtagh. I didn't like that. Thought they should have been together more. It was interesting to have it revealed how stunted Murtagh's education had been, because when you're reading from Aragon's perspective, it feels like he is so strong. He knows things that Aragon doesn't know. But from Murtagh's perspective, Murtagh was only taught just enough. Enough to be powerful, enough to beat Aragon, but not enough to be a threat to Galbatorix and the Empire. He was given Eldunari to make him strong, but he was not given a lot of knowledge, nor was he given free access to his partner, Thorn. Murtagh was a very different character to read about than Aragon. Whole different life, different past, different personality. It was weird to read about him being a city boy, which we know is how he was raised, but he had to learn how to survive in the wilderness, whereas that was like Aragon's whole life beforehand. And Murtagh has a brutal side that Aragon never had to develop. Murtagh kind of had to as self-defense. He had more enemies than friends. Tornak probably his only friend. And I thought it was interesting how whenever he encountered an animal, at least an animal that was going to possibly do him harm, Aragon always told animals in the ancient language, "Don't be afraid, I am your friend," and calmed them down. Murtagh's approach was to tell them to go, using the ancient language to send them away, except for Silna, the werecat child, because Silna was young and afraid, and Murtagh has a soft spot for children. You could also say he has a hard spot because his sympathy for children arises from his own past trauma. No one should ever treat a child the way that Murtagh was treated, and he will do what he can to stop children from being treated that way. I really felt for him when he was fake joining the guard. He knew it was only going to be for a day. He knew it was temporary. He's been alone for so long. Not truly alone. He has Thorn, but that feeling of human companionship, that camaraderie, that sharing of a common goal, working towards something with other like-minded people, he's been missing out on that. And he's starting to recognize that that's something he's missing in his life. And he wishes he could just let himself feel part of the group, but he can't. He knows he's going to betray them. He knows he's an oathbreaker because it's part of his true name in the ancient language. Whew. And he faces it and he accepts it. More importantly, Thorn accepts it. But I'm going to say that part of his true name being Oathbreaker is not entirely negative, because at the end of Inheritance, he was able to break his oath to Galbatorix, gaining freedom for himself and Thorn and helping defeat Galbatorix. So I'm going to say that's part of why it's part of his true name, not because he is a natural Oathbreaker, but he could start to believe it about himself. Because it's part of his name, because it was something he did, he could start to believe that that's just who he is and get depressed about it. In fact, I thought that was going to come up later when he swears his oath to, is it Ulvek? Uvek. It's Uvek. He swears his oath of brotherhood to Uvek, and I thought, oh no, he's told himself he's an oathbreaker. He's gonna break this oath, maybe on accident to save Thorn or Aline. It didn't come up. I'm glad. I'm glad he didn't break any more oaths. And I did get mad at Murtagh for feeling like he was consistently making a poor choice, consistently going into a situation where he should have backup. But I was more mad at Paolini. So going from that first half of the book where it's like fun adventure-y type of stuff to the second half, I am livid. I'm livid. Do I not look livid? Murtagh and Thorn have already been through it. They've already been tortured. They've already been used against each other. Why do they need to have it happen again? Why? I don't think it was necessary at all to introduce a new Galbatorix, a new powerful magic user who's the new threat to Allegasia and who captures Murtagh and Thorn to use them for her own purposes and who tortures them. Why? Why? Like maybe because we as the readers didn't get to experience that with him in the first books because we're seeing from Aragon's perspective. And so it's for us to have to see him go through that. I didn't want that. I don't think anybody did. Murtagh and Thorn should have had the chance to go prove themselves, to heal, to serve as rider and dragon, to help Allegasia. They can go on a mission that's hard and have difficulties to overcome, but they don't need to go through what they went through the first time with Galbatorix. Again, they needed healing from trauma, not more trauma. I do not forgive Christopher Paolini, nor will I. But anyway, highlights. Things that I liked about the book and the characterization. I loved Uvek. I loved how he just seemed like he was on Murtagh's side from the beginning. And that whole thing of Murtagh feeling like he needs a personal connection outside of Thorn, a relationship that's his own, being in it with somebody, he gets that with Uvek. He and Uvek are prisoners together. They swear their oaths of brotherhood, and then at the end, they fight for freedom together. And Uvek, I liked how he helped Thorn. Thorn just lets Uvek hop on, and Uvek is like, come on, what kind of dragon are you? What are you, afraid? Get in there and save your rider, otherwise what are you? It was tough, but Thorn is a beast. And Urgal has a lot of those, like, I don't know, monster-like qualities. And so having him speak that way to a dragon is language that a dragon can understand. Come on, what kind of dragon are you? Get in there and save your rider. That's probably just what Thorn needed. And I hope Uvek comes back in later books. I hope we get to see them again. I hope we get to see Uvek and Murtagh together again. I liked the character of Aline. I don't know if that's how you say it. That's how I'm saying it. And how she has to really confront her beliefs and her trust in Bashel. The people, the dreamers, idolize Bashel. She's not the real god that they worship, but she's the physical being they have there that they can see and hear and smell and touch. And she gets too much of the adoration from the dreamers. And Aline has to confront the fact that she is not worthy of it. That Bashel's not worthy of it. She was also very brave. It was not a very long time between confronting her beliefs to her helping Murtagh and Thorn. Okay, I hated the journey through the tunnels, and I might be in the minority of liking that Murtagh stopped to rename his sword. Maybe it wasn't the best time for it. Maybe it should have happened at a different point, but it was something that I wanted to have happen. That was his father's sword, a sword of the Forsworn that had caused so much misery. It lived up to its name. Murtagh is not his father. He's not Aragon, nor should he be. He is a dragon rider and needs a rider's sword. This is the one he has. It's red to match his dragon, but I wanted it to be able to be made his. It's Murtagh's sword now. And that moment where he confronts that, the truth of himself as he is now and what really matters to him, and then saying, you will not represent misery anymore, you will represent freedom. That is one of Murtagh's core values. It might not have been if he hadn't been through everything he's been through, but because of what he's had to go through, he really values freedom. He's not had any, except for that 1 year with just him and Thorn. And so that is something that he wants to fight for. He wants to fight to protect freedom. So he renames his sword and then continues on to fight the big bad guy of the book. And then we get to Thorn. It was not surprising that this moment happened. We had seen the foreshadowing happen. Thorn is highly claustrophobic. He has a panic disorder when it comes to enclosed spaces. We saw the flashbacks of how he got this trauma. And then we see Murtagh consistently going into places that Thorn is afraid to go. So we've seen it coming. The hard thing is how much Thorn hates himself for it. And it's not his fault. Thorn is not at fault for his fear, for his trauma, for anything he went through, but he still hates himself. He loves Murtagh more than anything, and he doesn't feel like he can go in and do what needs to be done to save Murtagh. And if Thorn had been alone, I don't know what would have happened, but he's not alone. He has Murtagh's new blood brother banging on his scales saying, "What kind of dragon are you?" And for Thorn, out of facing his fear or losing Murtagh was worse. He was able to face it for the person he loves. Now, here's the thing with trauma, even magical fantasy trauma for dragons, it's not magically healed. He's not suddenly cured of his trauma or of his fear of enclosed places. He will always be afraid of being trapped, but now that he has faced his fear once to help the person he loves, now he'll know going forward that he can face it again if he needs to. I have a couple of things in my notes. I wasn't sure where to put them in. They're little things that were going through Thorn's mind, and since I'm talking about Thorn, I'll put them in now. In quotation marks, something he says to Murtagh is, "I wish I were not so faulted." Oof. It's so much easier to recognize the fault within yourself than to recognize where the fault came from, or that you might not be the one who caused the fault. I know I already talked about that. Thorn's trauma is not his fault, and I hope that recognizing that can be part of his journey, and maybe starting to heal from that can change his true name, and that he can discover that about himself. I want more Thorn in the next book. And here's also what I want in the next book. I don't remember what part of the book it was, but something was mentioned about we need to call Aragon and Arya to come help with this, and Thorn said how it would be exciting. This part's gonna make me emotional too. Getting emotional about the dragon but not the human. Thorn got so excited by the idea of flying with other dragons. He's never gotten to fight with other dragons. Up to now, he had to fight against Saphira. He's never gotten to live that dragon life, and he wants to. He wants to fly with his nestmates and fight with them, alongside them, against evil. I hope he gets to. So, Bashel is beaten. They escape. They get to Nazwada. There's still that big threat, Azgular, or whatever. There will be plenty more stories to be had. But for now, they could use a rest. And people keep talking about the romance between Murtagh and Nazwada. I haven't seen that there's been any romance at all. At the end of Aragon the book, they meet and they kind of like each other. At the end of Inheritance, it's complicated. Murtagh being forced to torture Nazwada is not a romance. Murtagh trying to save the person he loves by having her forced to join them instead of killed, that's not really a romance. And the scene at the end of Murtagh, also not really romantic. And Murtagh and Nazwada haven't really had a chance to develop a romance. They barely met before Thorn hatches for Murtagh. Then it's highly negative and strained and painful. Now they might finally get a chance. Perhaps now a romance can finally start. Now they can discover if that's even a possibility between them. Can they heal from what happened to them at the end of Inheritance? Can they move forward? I don't know. But now they have a chance to see if they can. Murtagh does tell Nazwada he's not going to make any big commitments as far as, yes, I will serve you and your new empire, kingdom, whatever. We're not going to join Duvrangargata. They need to preserve their freedom. That's something that Murtagh and Thorn have to have. Nazwada respects that, and now that they have the choice to go be free or to stay, they decide to stay. I don't know where the story will go from here. I hope it goes in a direction that I don't have to be mad at the author. I don't think they'll get a happy ending. And I think that's okay, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And I'll see you back here for more videos later. Bye.